Welcome everyone to episode 13 of the Ethnically podcast. Today's guest is Karan Kapoor. With years of experience in inclusion and diversity, Karan has worked with renowned companies such as Mars, Johnson& Johnson, King, Nomad Foods. Karan's expertise lies in developing and implementing effective strategies to foster inclusive behaviors and diverse workplace environments. Karan's mission is to ensure that as many workplaces as possible embrace inclusivity, drive both employee satisfaction and organizational success. From that mission, Karan has started his own company, Vividh, to achieve this goal. Driven by a genuine passion for positive change, Karan is committed to making workplaces authentically inclusive. Karan's goal is to transform organizations, ensuring every employee feels included, valued, and empowered. Welcome, Karan. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How about yourself?
No, really good, really good. I'm really interested to talk to you because your whole business around Vivid is obviously really interesting, and it's like your whole work is dedicated to DNI. So it's like I don't say I'm talking to an expert, but I'm talking to someone who's like lived it and breathed it. So I'm
Yeah,
very
yeah. No, it's
excited.
really can never be an expert in DNI. So like, there's
That's
not
so true.
anyone that can say they're because you can't have everyone's lived experiences. But yeah, I'm excited to be here today as well. See what we're going to be talking about.
No, delighted to have you on the podcast. And in terms of the first question, could you tell us more about your experiences in DNI as a whole and how it shaped you and your perspective on it?
Cool. So like I worked in so actually my background isn't from a DNI background. I've actually worked in different areas. I started my career off in IT, then I fell into supply chain, then I went into DNI randomly. And that was where I found my passion and my purpose, I feel, in that space. I suppose the DNI itself, like it's so different in different organizations. So every organization is very special. But I would say there's a current theme in a lot of the organizations that I'm seeing, and I think what I fell out from like in the sense of like what I got out from all of it was about the word of inclusion. The fact that I felt, we're saying DNI a lot, so diversity and inclusion, but we're not actually saying inclusion first. I think it's the foundation, and then diversity is something that naturally happens from inclusion. So I think my experience from that is like the behaviors of the importance of inclusivity, then focusing on diversity. I think I've seen a lot of organizations focus too much on diversity, but then when they bring that diversity in, because the culture isn't so inclusive, it cannot work very successfully. And then you see the downfall of DNI in that space. So I personally think I've learned so much in that space of the importance of inclusivity and psychological safety. Now.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, that's very good. That's a very good point actually, because I can attest to that from my own experiences. I think a lot of companies, yeah, do focus on the diversity part and then forget the inclusion bit, which actually keeps the diversity in the organization and keeps them thriving. So
Yeah.
that's something I can definitely validate on.
And you say when you validate, Ollie, what do you mean? When you say validate, what do you mean by validate? What is your experience?
Oh, interesting. Oh, the no, you never usually get asked questions.
I'm a podcaster as well as that.
Yeah. Um, no, I think so. Like, having worked in social change organizations, non-profits for like the beginning of my career, I find that once there's this emphasis to bring in diverse talent and people from different backgrounds into the organizations, whether it's their career experiences or lived experiences, they're valued, sort of, in my opinion, when they're recruited. But
Mhm.
as soon as they're in the building, it's kind of forgotten about.
Yeah.
That's what I've experienced, and also I feel there's there's not enough emphasis on culture, like you said, and I think there's very much a top down approach as well, still in a lot of organizations, and that's what I've experienced, and that doesn't build any inclusivity for me, in my opinion. Um,
Right.
but yeah, does that sort of correlate to your experiences
Yeah,
as well?
it does because, like, in the sense of like that's a feeling of inclusion, right? So like,
Mm.
everyone, and that's what's beautiful about inclusion is that everyone will feel it differently. Like, not everyone's form of inclusivity is the same in every person. So, because everyone's different, everyone's unique, and so like within that, it's really nice to hear someone else's perspective of what inclusion means to them. But again, the foundation's there, which is inclusion. So, like, how does someone feel included is where it all comes down to. So, yeah, no, it does massively answer
Mm.
the question, which I did. So thanks. I sorry to put you on the spot.
No, I appreciate that. You're probably the first person to ask me directly a question on
Right.
the podcast,
So
which
I
I
think you're going to see a lot of this stuff now. So tell me to stop if it gets too hot.
no, I love it. I absolutely love it. But actually, in terms of what you mentioned and like your experiences, you mentioned and in your bio, obviously, you've got experiences across a range of different industries.
Yeah.
How did that sort of contribute to your understanding of diversity and inclusion? Was it different in different sectors, different industries,
Yeah.
different companies?
Yeah, I would say so, actually. Like, it was interesting because all the organizations I worked for, so my first organization wasn't a big global. Well, it was a global organization, but it wasn't as massive as the other organizations I've worked for from a people perspective, and probably as a company size as well. And so when I think of it like that, I definitely saw a bit more of a startup feel at the start of my career. So it was very family orientated. It was very put together. But then I went to a really big corporate, which I absolutely loved, and it was one of the best experiences I moved into. Was was Mars, and Mars at Mars, I had such a great experience. I got long life friends from there too, but that culture was really beautiful too because there was a lot of people it was a lot of family feel in that space, that people were looking for you and they were there for you. Um, but what I did start seeing from that world is that I saw that inclusion and like how to be part of things was quite apparent. So being part of a boys club, being part of a by community, by being part of things would help you develop your career
Mhm.
further. And then it wasn't just in one space. I saw that continuously grow throughout. So I think that's where I saw the differences when it came to that kind of industry experiences. But when I saw the roles I was doing, because it was program project management roles really at the start of my career, that was kind of like where I would say I saw a lot of inclusivity when it was within my project groups, obviously. But then when I was trying to sell the idea or what else, I then started seeing a little bit different. So I think it's really interesting. And it was every manager was different. So that was one of the things which I learned massively. That actually managers are the ones that make you stay or go, and that is
Yeah.
something that's really strong. And not always, because sometimes you get better opportunities outside, and then you want to take the opportunity to move industries and stuff like that. So it's not always based on manager, but it definitely is something that is a really critical factor in a lot of things. And a lot of decisions, I would say maybe two big decisions that I've done have been based on manager experience as well. So it is so, like, I feel like it's so important from that lens. Inclusivity is not just how the organization's doing it, but what are your people managers doing to make that person feel included in their day to day.
Yeah, no, I think that relationships are kind of like the bread and
Yeah.
butter of being part of a diverse and inclusive culture. Um,
Yeah.
there's actually a great stat from the CMI, and I know this because I did a bit of research on this on a previous project, but 8% of your entire life satisfaction is dependent on who your manager is
Yeah.
throughout your whole career. So that's
Yeah.
8% of your entire life and satisfaction as a whole. 8%, which is a lot. So I think it's
Yeah.
very important that managers are understanding and sort of you can get along with them, but also they want to also build that inclusive and diverse culture and being able to ensure that you can sort of prosper in that aspect.
Yeah.
Did you sort of take those experiences that you had with those different managers into your own
Yeah.
leadership style?
100%, 100%. So I would say, like, whatever I learned, which I didn't want to do, I learned from those managers, and then what I learned from those managers, which was really admiring from, so, such as learning how to like create a team from scratch and being a new. I had a manager that was a brand new manager. He was amazing because he actually really showed me skills on how to bring teams together and actually try to bring a psychological safe environment in. And I loved that. That was in my career, 4 or 5 years within my career. Then I saw in my previous managers as well that they brought such authenticity to their role and such vulnerability to their role, where they're like, "I'm not perfect. We're going to figure it out together. We'll do it together." So I definitely felt that, and I felt the things which I definitely have taken away from managers that are exclusive and very hierarchical and stuff like that, which I didn't bond well with. That's where I definitely took that away. Well, okay, I don't really want to work in that environment, or I don't want to work like that with my team and stuff like that. So I think like that is definitely stuff which I've taken from a lot of the spaces for
Mhm.
sure. And I think like and that 8% stat makes sense because it is really it's so focused on what like especially in your corporate world, right? Because your career, you'll want to progress in career. Whoever does want to progress in careers and stuff, and want to be happy in their job, even if they don't want to progress in careers, they want to just be happy
Mhm.
doing their work. The manager needs to be supportive of everything they do, and it's so critical that your manager's there to support.
Yeah, I feel like happiness is such an underrated thing when it
Yeah,
comes to work and
for
like
sure,
feeling
100%.
part of an inclusive culture anyway. If you're
Yeah,
not happy, then you can't really be included in anything or feel
I
like you're included.
It's not like they might feel like you're included, but the thing
Mm,
is, which you won't feel is that you're included because they're not meeting that need of happiness for yourself to feel included. So naturally, if you've got a manager that's probably going against the grain of what you feel you want to bring to the table, to open up more, to share ideas, to be more open and vulnerable towards a table, but not getting judged or worried about judgment and stuff. That's the psychological safe part, which the managers won't create. Therefore, your resource or the person reporting into you will be like, oh, I don't want to share anything. I'm going to sit quietly. And all those great ideas are now not being shared because that person's living in fear or not sharing ideas. So like that's where it's important for inclusivity and a psychological safe space to make to make anyone feel like they can thrive really.
mm. That reminds me of we had an episode with Sophia Azam, who's founder of Skill for Startups, and she was talking about one of the key skills for creating diverse and inclusive workplaces, organizations, startups is emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like that, that's kind of like what you're touching on when it comes
Yeah,
to managers having that sort of. I feel
100%.
like you don't just want your manager to be a manager. You want it to be your manager to be a human being, which sounds very obvious. But
Yeah.
if I wasn't saying it, then that means it would be happening. But it hasn't been happening. And
And it's true, right? And like you can't. The thing is, we tend to blame. And I do feel for managers because I think we
mm,
tend to blame managers quite quickly. It's always someone else's fault. Like I feel like we do that quite a lot without trying to build people into a space and showing exactly what is it that you need and require. Maybe because of something else that's been in past experiences. But I feel like if you're not open in sharing what you want, I think that's when the fear starts settling in, and that's where you don't be open enough.
yeah,
Uh, but I definitely think that there is so much benefit of sharing openly what you want to do, how you want to be treated, and what you want to be moving on with your career, because I think that's where you have that conversation with your manager always. So I think that's super important.
yeah, no, definitely, it is really important. I guess as well, those sort of topics of emotional intelligence and
Yeah.
discussions. Do they form some of you mentioned earlier and like some of the D&I initiatives that you've been involved in across your career?
Yeah.
Do those aspects are those aspects that we just touched on involved in those initiatives, and how did they sort of form your passion for DE&I and sort of building more inclusive organizations?
Yeah, it was interesting actually. So it like the first couple of months because I was so and because like again we're everyone's so driven to hit results and see the results and do work. That's how people are trained normally to drive, deliver. And if you're super driven, like I am, I'm super drive. I've got a massive drive for results. So for me to be super driven was awesome, and like I wanted to hit everything, to complete everything. And cool. That drive, then you don't have time to think about the emotional intelligence part of stuff. So I always talk about system one and system two. Our system
Mm,
one is 95% utilized all the time. Our system two is 5%. System one is more about how you are like it's autopilot basically. It just
mm,
happens. If there's a fire happening in your kitchen, you need to run straight away out the door. But your 5% one's a bit more lazy and it takes a lot more time and effort to utilize a bit more. So when you're in a position where you have to keep delivering, you're gonna use your 95 one. So you're unconsciously gonna keep your 5% not even active. So you're just gonna go autopilot constantly. And I think what I realized was that's where I realized, well, actually, that's where all the biases lie, is your 5%. Your 5% is the one that's not even triggering your biases. Your 5% is the one that letting your biases just keep on going as you want to. So that's why they're unconscious bias, because they just are unconscious. They just autopilot and you just
mm,
keep going. Whilst you're consciously being inclusive, that's why I keep talking about consciously inclusion, then your 5% utilization is a bit more stronger. So you're being a bit more active in it. You're learning a bit from it. You're trying to do things within it to be different and understand, like, how can I mitigate my biases? That's where I found the passion. And that's where I found, oh, wow, this can impact people. This can really change people's lives and make people feel like they belong. I think what I've realized was, I think it was King. It was the first experience that I had. I didn't know some people but they knew me, and I didn't know that they knew me. But when I was leaving King, I had messages from so many people just saying to me, "You really helped me, and you really impacted my discussions. You really helped me move forward. You made me feel included. You helped me have the conversations with my." Like, it was insane what I was getting experience from, and then I was like, well, when you think about, because I was all about let's get the biggest projects, let's get the, I was looking at the big $1 million projects. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have all of that. But then I felt when I got all those big projects, and then comparing to people telling me what you've made and what you've changed about my experience, that was so different. And it was just like, well, this is what it is. And that's where the passion came from. And then when I saw the changes, the policies, the training, just the strategy of just being more inclusive and just becoming more human, as we all say, and showing that and seeing the light bulb moments happening at C-suite level below and all that stuff, you just feel, wow, this can change and this can make such a big difference.
Mm.
And then yeah, so that's where I feel the passion started, and that's why I'm doing it.
Is it kind of like, that it's like that famous quote, it's like people forget what you've done or said, but they never forget how you feel. So I guess
Yeah.
like your
Hence, yeah,
responsibility in that was to, yeah, you might have worked on £1 million projects, but it's actually the way you made someone feel when you were leaving, or not when you were leaving, when you were at King, that
yeah.
made that made them remember you and sort of think of you fondly. I
And
guess,
th and
yeah,
that's the beauty of it, and that was the beauty for me anyway. That was my, when you talk about job satisfaction, that was the satisfaction that I was feeling, and I hadn't felt a satisfaction like that for a long time. I felt satisfaction in the sense of, like, completing my work, but I'm always like, "Okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Let's go, let's go." This one was a bit more like, "Oh, actually, I'm content. I'm actually quite
yeah.
happy with what I'm getting given as feedback."
Mm.
It was very different for sure.
It's kinda like it's kinda like, I don't wanna say adrenaline, but the buzz you get from
Yeah.
making that change,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
kinda like a
100%.
driver for you. That's really interesting
It
because
is it is a driver, a massive driver.
a lot of a lot I don't say a lot of people, but my kind of insight on DE&I as a whole is kind of like a tick box exercise
Right.
for a lot of organizations, and
Yeah.
it's not like they don't have a buzz for doing it. I feel like that's a key difference I've already noticed in you, but it's
And
kind
how
of,
and just if I ask that question, so you
yeah,
said it's box exercise, what makes you feel like it's a tick box exercise?
it's kind of the effort and the attitude towards doing it,
Right.
rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it and doing it because it's right, and
Yeah,
prioritizing culture.
sure.
There's no when I've experienced it, it's kind of like oh, it's just an additional thing we need to do, or
Mm,
we've got an extra agenda item. Let's talk about D&I.
yeah,
It's not like a focus. It's not a drive. It's not a passion for everyone.
yeah.
Everyone sees it as an add-on rather than a priority.
Yeah,
Um,
and
that's kind of where it's more of an attitude thing in my eyes that kind of makes it a tick box rather than, like, you just spoke about the change you made in an organization and how it made people feel and
yeah,
how it made you feel.
yeah,
That should be what every organization that wants to become more diverse and inclusive should have,
yeah,
that feeling, so that same attitude towards
for
it. So
sure.
that's kind of why I see a lot of
100
organizations.
and that's a really good insight. You know what? And I'm not kidding you. I think I speak to so many people, and generally everyone says the same thing. It's a tick box exercise.
Mm.
Because I feel personally that it's not communicated well at all. I don't think people communicate what they're planning on doing, how they plan to do it successfully. I think what then happens is when we talk about diverse hiring, it becomes a tick box exercise for a lot of people because then what they're focusing on is on the diverse hiring. But actually, if they explain why they're doing the diverse hiring, if they explain why they want to do this, does it entail, what does equity actually mean? Like, gives them so much more context behind what they're trying to achieve. People don't have that, and there's people that are in it, like myself. I'm in it, so I know why we're doing it. I know why everything's been done. But actually, if you're not communicating it well and successfully, and your leadership team is not communicating that well and successfully, and they're not making jokes about, all the, oh, we're looking, but we're not finding the right people. Like, that is not helping the vision of what you're trying to achieve, because actually you're making it not sound serious.
Yeah,
And what I think a lot of organizations are potentially doing. Plus, there's so much backlash with DNI at the moment, because I feel like what's happening is people are not seeing the changes as quickly, and it's a cultural change. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It never will happen overnight. That's factual information. Practice is going to take time. It will get there, but people want to see immediate results. People want to see immediate change. It has to be. I have to see the ROI. I need to see what is my return on investment here. I've spent so much money and still nothing's happening. Why? It takes time, and it's like it really needs to get to that level. But there is so many people that say to me that's just a tick box exercise. But really. And if you flip it, when I said at the start, right, bring inclusion first, explain what
Yeah.
inclusion is first, bring that strong. Then the diverse metric stuff that they're achieving and then you put out there will be quite a natural thing because you're already inclusive, your behavior is already inclusive. Naturally, your diversity is going to flourish. Naturally, you're going to think differently. Naturally, you're going to be quite equitable. It's just a thing which will happen automatically, hopefully.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. That's I think that's the aspiration as well, and I think
Yeah.
touching on, your work in as a CEO of Vivid, could you
Yes.
talk a little bit more about, like, why you set up Vivid and kind of
Yeah.
why you transitioned from sort of doing it for well, in your roles in different organizations to sort of setting up your own, like, consultancy?
Yeah. I think like that's a really good question because my passion for Vivid has always been there. I think I've always wanted to do something that was a bit more bigger in street in like in a bigger way. I think working as a corporate individual, and like I loved my corporate life, I still, I miss out days as well because I
Yeah.
do really enjoy the corporate world. Um, but I felt like I could impact more people's lives if I went by myself and I went
Yeah.
solo. And I have. I've already I've got loads of different organizations. I wouldn't have because they don't have roles for me to apply to. So I wouldn't have gone into those roles, but I've gone into different organizations I wouldn't apply to because they don't have roles for me. But I've also done work and I've also impacted people there. So I've already made an imprint in some other in other teams. I've made imprints in places where I wanted my voice to be heard. So I think I wanted more Vivid to do that in a way for myself. But then I also wanted an organization that was quite authentic to inclusion and really show fronting that this is what inclusion is about. We're not just going to be doing tick box exercising. We're not just going to be, I'm not going to just tell you what you want to hear. I'm not going to be like, yeah, 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 sure, let's just deliver what you want to, because that I don't believe in. I believe
Mm.
in partnering with an organization. I believe in that's what's the right thing to do. I believe I'm so passionate for everyone to feel included, like every single person in the world to feel included in part of something. So that's the only way I thought, okay, well, if I really want to bring my passion alive, if that's the only way I can do it, is start my own business.
Mm.
And I thought, okay, let's do it. Let's start the business.
Wow, that's crazy. So you just like it was kinda like you just I don't wanna say you just, like, woke up one day, it was like, "Oh, I wanna do it myself," but was it kind of what was the kinda mentioned, like, you had done it in organizations, but why yourself? Like, what was the thing that made you, like did you kind of
Yeah.
'cause from my point of view, why I set up Ethnically, right?
Yeah.
It's very different, but I was just frustrated with how things were going in different organizations and
Yeah.
the way I personally perceived things, and I thought I used that frustration and channeled it to make something good.
Yeah.
What my question is, what were the emotions that kind of prompted you to say,
I would say it was pretty much the similar emotions in the sense of like, the thing is, I've been really blessed because I feel like I've connected with really great individuals around the organization. I've also had the opportunity to share my vision and my purpose, and people have listened to it and they really embedded it and so forth. So it's really nice to see that. But I've always wanted to go one level above, and that one level above is to support and build and structure and stuff like that, which I didn't think I would have had the opportunity to do it at my age now, to be honest with
Mm.
you. Frankly honest, I think it's quite, we are in age-wise organizations, to be honest. You need the level of experience and so forth to do anything in this world.
Yeah.
Which I agree with. You need experience. I accept that. You need experience. You need to know how to do it and you need to know how to do it well. But when you feel like you can do it and you want to have the opportunity to do it, sometimes the opportunity is not always given to you in a corporate world. But when you are given the opportunity by having your own business and starting something different, you've got the opportunity now to talk to anyone. There's no blocking. There's no political drama. It's like you don't care about the politics. You just go straight into the conversation. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want the political drama. I got really tired of politics, to be honest with you. I really wanted to have a bit more of a free kind of speak, and I wanted to say it how it is, and this is what it is, and if you don't like it, that's your choice. You
Mm.
can't impact my career, and that's the
Yeah.
most important thing. I think like that's what really pushed me even further. I can't say like it's been like it obviously had been emotions behind why I feel it as well. That definitely is one of the emotions was like, okay, well, how can push it without worrying about politics so much? And how can I just push it and just say, this is what I would do and this is what good looks like. So trust me, follow it and see what
Mm.
happens. Um, that's why I think that's why I really wanted to do it. But
Yeah.
you know what? What your story resonates with me quite a lot because actually frustration builds in, right? And you get frustrated. You're like, oh, what can I do? How can I make more? How can I voice more? I think that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to voice more. Not that I didn't have a voice. I had a very strong voice. I wanted to voice more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This was the only
Wanted
thing I felt like I could do.
mm. Is it kinda like you wanted your own stamp on the way it was done? Because that's kind of what I
Yeah,
that's kind of the frustration I felt. I wasn't just frustrated at the lack of activity around DEI or the lack of urgency. I
yeah,
was frustrated at how people in organizations that us I'm gonna come to it, so-called experts in DEI are doing it because, like you said at the beginning, there is no such thing as a DEI expert, but
yeah,
it's just I found it frustrating, like, you're not doing things like how I not just how I would do it, but I think just there was a kind of for me as well, I found it like a generational thing as well.
yeah.
I don't know.
100. You will get
Mm,
generational. I think that's what I definitely find that one of the struggles with a lot of people have is the generation. Because you do have very different generations coming with different mindsets from both angles. But actually, I think tolerance is definitely one of the biggest terminologies I will use. So I
mm,
think people need to be tolerant from both ends. And it also needs to be quite a tolerant environment because people are learning and they're still learning in journey. So no one's going to get everything straight away. And then it's likewise, people coming in also need to be tolerant of the people learning and still be with them through their journey. To go through that. I think that's where I got a little bit more frustrated because we're lacking tolerance from both
mm,
every angle. How can
yeah,
I gain more tolerance in? But you're right. I think I look, they are great DNI professionals. I've met some amazing ones in my life, and they're really passionate and they're amazing at what they do. But I feel like what tends to happen if you don't have enough budget, resources, support, and stuff like those individuals can only do the best they can. They can't do more than what they can because they're stuck. They're stuck with what they've got. But they're going to try to make whatever they've got and try to make the best out of it. But they're stuck with that limit. So I think that's where I didn't want to feel like I didn't want to be stuck. I wanted to, and not saying I have been stuck, but I just didn't want the feeling of being stuck. I wanted to be
mm,
free. I wanted to have my stamp on it. I wanted people to think, wow, this is great. This is a Vividh product. This is awesome. This is a great concept. We can follow it through and they roll it out further. That's what I wanted as well. Yeah, for sure.
I think with your role in Vivid and sort of the work you're doing, are you what are some of the, like, depressing D&I challenges that you're seeing in the organizations that you're working with? Because, like, yeah,
Yeah.
taking all of that emotion and the reasons why you set up Vivid and putting your own stamp on the organizations, what are those challenges that you're facing when doing that?
I think like I keep hearing diverse metrics. Like that is really depressing to hear at times because everyone's like it's a tick box exercise. Oh, I don't believe in it. Oh, it's a waste of time. I hear that a lot, and I do hear that a lot, and it's a waste of money. Um, I feel like people are missing. I think through so many different elements of things, but I think people are missing the impact of what inclusion does and what it can do to any organization. It's like actually proven. Like there's articles after articles. You go anywhere on Google, you go ChatGPT, you go anywhere, they'll give you articles of why inclusion and diversity will bring you money into your organization. It's fact. It's like everyone's writing books about it. Everyone's writing articles about it. It's a factual thing. But what tends to happen is people don't want to put the effort and time into that part, and they just want to fast tracking into everything.
Mm.
That's never gonna, and you're never gonna be successful. So I think that's definitely one of the depressing things I hear. The other thing I hear quite depressing is they don't. Um, it's the bantering thing, and it's
Mm.
sad because I understand why people are saying it. And so they're like, it's not like how it used to be. So I hear a lot of organizations, a lot of people in organizations say, oh, it's not like how it used to be. Like I could say this and it's fine, and now it's not fine. So it's like really educating and teaching people again. Well, actually, it was never fine. It's
Yeah,
like now
fine, yeah.
this is how you should say it more appropriate. This is a workspace. This is not your friend's house. You can say whatever you want. It's up to you, really. In a workspace, this is not appropriate things to say. So I think like that is what is also quite depressing that people still don't. That it's not a you know I don't know if I'm saying it
Mm.
right, but it's not something that's a bad thing not to have banter. Actually, it's showing you your banter was inappropriate,
Yeah,
not it wasn't appropriate for work. That's where I think and people don't get that. People just don't
mm,
understand that at all.
yeah. That's
There's so many other things I could talk about, yeah, depressed, like
yeah.
from a race perspective, from a gender perspective, from any disability perspective. I can talk about it constantly. Those two things are highlighting at the moment a lot.
Mm. Yeah, that's I would never have I mean, I understand those as, like, challenges, but I think it's cool cool is the wrong word. I think it's, like, crazy that, the like, banter is still, like, that sort of joking around about diversity and inclusion is still a thing. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of I've seen it, but I'm not really witnessed or, like, known for in my experience, and to hear that it's still going on is kind of, well, obviously very worrying. I'm also not surprised at it as well.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of the future of D&I and,
Mm.
like, the work that you're doing, what do you see as, like, some of those trends or things that are gonna continue, or areas that you think will be important for organizations to pinpoint and sort of tackle?
I think like future wise, I think what's happening with DNI, and I might be totally wrong. It just might be my lived experience, and I might be another DNI professional like no, he's totally wrong. But I feel like DNI is going into a space where it's probably going to have to be re-looked at a little bit and re-looked into and seen, is it actually what we're doing? Is it actually right? And is it actually doing of any benefit to the organization? I think what we've done, a lot of companies have done, especially that I'm aware of, they've looked at what people are doing externally, which are the benchmarking, which I understand you have to benchmark against something in competitions where you would go, but actually you're not authentically to your organization. So how can we create a DNI strategy that's authentic to your organization? So for example, if you're working in an industry where it's heavily saturated with men, to then say, I'm going to get a 40-50% target of women coming to work, how are you going to do that when
Mm.
actually you have people in that, even in the industry, there's not 50% women in that industry? How are you getting 50% women into that workforce? So it's like really putting your metrics and spaces into mindset and understanding what is it that you're looking to do and how are you trying to achieve it? But then also like, what are you do? I also think investment and also a little bit of like ESG comes a bit involved in this.
Mm.
It's a bit more about the social part of stuff. So like, what are you doing to help the social economy out as well, to support your ambition to bring more diversity into your organization? So for example, like sponsoring schools that will encourage more girls or women or whatever it would be to do more of the masculine considered subjects that we would call it. So like the STEM subjects or whatever, how can we get more? And actually there have been some data saying that more women are starting to do STEM, which is great. But like, how can we get more diverse backgrounds to do it? How can we get more socio-economical friendly backgrounds to do it? Can we start thinking more about apprenticeships in the organizations? I think that's something that's going to move forward as well, because right now we're just looking at every level has like, you have to come out a graduate or an undergraduate degree, but actually there's so much beauty in other things that we can look into. How can we look into that too? So I think mindsets need to be widened a little bit and reached a little bit to see what we can do. But I definitely see the future of putting money into your social environment to see how can we benefit from more and more people coming to the organization from a different diverse background.
I guess, is it sort of funding some of those more, like, grassroots sort
Yeah,
of
100%.
organizational, well, whether that's in the organization or externally,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, as a benefit? Because I think also maybe people are listening and thinking, like, our organization isn't working with a D&I consultant. How can I, as a, I don't know, junior member of a team
yeah.
or senior leader in the organization, how can I impact D&I in my organization? What would you say to someone who's thinking that?
How to impact D&I within the organization? Well, actually, ask. I would like. Thing is, I can give you an idea of solutions. Obviously, can't give you my whole
Yeah,
business.
yeah, don't give your whole business plan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. But I'll give you what you should do. But like I would create like focus groups, right? So like having conversations with people, and having conversations and talking to people around to understand what is it that you're missing in your organization for now, and then try to draft a 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 year plan if you can to see what are your gaps that you're missing, what policies are you adding within your organization to make it more inclusive. So that could be anything from maternity, from paternity, from like anything from, even when you're looking at people that want to do IVF treatment, there's menopause, anything from the lens of grandeur that you can think of, even religion stuff. So like when it's Eid and people want to fast, how can we make more flexible hours for them during those working times? So there's so much that can be looked into. And it can be done. So why not try it? And I think like that is what I would I wouldn't say go ground running if you're independent and and you can't afford a DNI consultant or you have a DNI professional there. I wouldn't go like, right, we need to solve the whole world. I wouldn't fast pace. I'd be really strategic and logical about something and do it in a slow pace, but get it embedded as quickly and as kind quickly and like sensibly as you possibly can. You don't want to embed something and then regret embedding it and it doesn't work out well. Because then what you've done is you've just proven the point that everyone wants to prove that DNI doesn't work. And that is not the case. DNI does work. And so that's what I try to really push on. Try not to prove everyone feeling like they've got it right, that this is just a concept, not actually a thing.
Yeah. Do you see that a lot then? Like a lot of people that to say that, oh, it's just a concept and it doesn't work. Like because you've mentioned that a couple of times on the episode.
I do see it a lot. And you know what? It's not so much, so the organizations won't say it to me directly, which is quite
Mm.
nice, but
Yeah.
it's more when you get to understand it a bit more and understand the conversations behind it and your circles and stuff like that. You then start hearing a bit more, and then you hear that DNI doesn't feel like a thing. And I think that is quite a strong thing at the moment. I'm hearing a lot. Don't get me wrong, there's some great organizations that are doing some great work and they're embedding a lot of changes. But how much is it tick box and how much is it authentic? That's where
Yeah.
people are disconnecting. And even if they are authentic, some people don't believe the authenticity because it's not been communicated well. So then
Mm.
it's like that's like the buy-in, like how do we get people more and more involved into that strategy?
Yeah. I guess
Thanks, right.
yeah. I guess maybe senior leaders and leaders of organizations obviously will be accountable to all of that.
Yeah.
Um, it's
But
kind of
well, I
yeah.
say this, so I love this because everyone keeps on saying to me it's leadership problem. It's
Mhm.
not a leadership problem. Okay, it's not just a leadership problem, it's still a leadership problem. But
Yeah.
actually, it has to happen at every level of the organization. So just saying it's my manager's manager's C-suite's problem, it's not.
Mm.
They can only do what they can at their level, right? They can't do everything. Human beings at the end of the day. So let's get some empathy for them as well. And well, they can't do everything.
Yeah, that's true.
We need everyone. Everyone needs to be part of that movement to make a change. Everyone needs to be part of that. You can't be expecting 7 people for 150 people. It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
That way, all of those people need to get together and be part of the movement to become more inclusive. So I think every level needs to be a part of it. It's not just senior leadership. I say inclusive leaders because I believe everyone is an inclusive leader. That can be anyone in that organization at any level is an inclusive leader because you're role model inclusivity. That's
Mhm.
what I would definitely say.
Yeah, that does make sense to me. Actually, the question was going to be what role do leaders play in driving that, but I think you've answered it in a nice way actually, because it's not just leaders. I think
No,
um, even like people like junior staff that come into an organization with a fresh perspective and kind
yeah,
of notice things that they don't feel is right or probably want to voice things that it is also their responsibility to ensure that they're carrying out their duties, but also
for sure.
being advocates for inclusion as well. So that does make that does make a lot of sense to me, and yeah, answers the question in a much better way than I anticipated. Um, in terms of D&I, in terms of an industry and a career, actually, because a lot of people on the podcast or listening are probably early careers and maybe interested in working in the D&I space. What
Right.
advice would you give to those that look interested in pursuing a career in D&I?
It's an interesting one because I've actually had, and it's great actually, I've had some really great people that have never done DNI and walked into. I would say like pursuing a career in DNI, I would say be prepared that it's quite an emotional journey at
Yeah.
times because you are taking a lot of emotions in and you're hearing a lot of emotion. So you've got to really understand the emotions, but also take the emotion away, but then also think a bit logically as well. But within an empathetic mindset for sure. But I would say if you're going to start a career in DNI, just start it. I bet there isn't actually I can't like I said, I'm not like I randomly got into DNI. So it's not like I studied there's no DNI
Mm,
degree. There's no how to be the best inclusive person ever in the world. Like there's no
yeah.
subjects that teach you that. But you learn and you learn how to be human. You learn how to be empathetic. You learn how to be equitable. So how can you bring an equitable workplace that you can bring to the table, that you can bring to the forefront and say, this is what you need to start doing. And I think like if you've got a mindset of drive and you've got a great management mindset, and it's all about change management. The DNI is change management. So like if you're really interested in change management, then that is something which I'll tell you to go to. But if you want to try it and see what works for you. And it can go from like doing the events of the international events that happen. It can go from doing the training programs. It can go through even focus groups exercises. It can go through doing like reporting. It can go through any lens that can get you into DNI. I feel quite easily.
Yeah. No, that's true, because I think, yeah, you're right. I've never noticed there to be a D&I degree or
Yeah, I'm
qualification.
aware of. I might be totally wrong. And I work out. I'm going to Google this when I finish. I'm like, there's a DNI course. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
there is.
As in, yeah, like, not that I know of or you on know of, that
Yeah,
there is
just be there is like this, like there are like
courses and
you can do
yeah.
courses and stuff, of course, but like you can do, I think they're great courses as well. They you understand how to build a strategy. But then DN inclusion changes like
Every
every
year, yeah.
every other day. There's something different that happens.
Mhm.
So it's something that will happen constantly. It's a constant change. So you
Yeah.
can't
That
learn.
is I don't know about you, and you probably have a very similar viewpoint, but one thing I love about D&I is that there's always something new to learn and something
Yeah,
that's changing, and
yeah,
like you said, like, because it's constantly evolving,
yeah.
I feel like I'm learning more and more about different forms of
100%.
diversity inclusion, not just diversity inclusion, but learning about different communities,
100%.
different aspects of different religions, different
Yeah.
it's a different human beings. You like learn so much,
Yeah,
and
and honestly, I've
yeah.
not because I think that's why I'm really content because in my
Mm,
career, I've always moved around because I've always wanted to keep learning. And in DNI, I've been really content. I'm just constantly learning. I keep learning from different groups. I keep learning from diverse buckets I'm not part of. I call them buckets. I shouldn't call them buckets, but groups.
mm,
I listen to different diverse groups. I understand like what we can start doing different. I think it's so beautiful just to understand, empathize. I've learned so much about my biases and like bloody hell, and a
mm.
lot of
Yeah.
bias. And I'm like, great. Now I'm into the majority of them. But like, I had no clue until I walked in how biased I could be in certain settings. And I was like, this is insane. And like, really just opened my mindset up. So, yeah, I think it's such a fantastic field. And I'm so grateful that someone took a risk on me. It was a risk because I had no DNI experience. They took a risk on me. They said, we want to bring you in. And they did it. And I found my passion.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, yeah, it just happened on like an opportunity someone gave
Massive,
you.
massive.
That-
2 people in my life, which I'll always thank for making me have that opportunity.
mm. That's incredible. And speaking of like the future and your aspirations as a sort of D&I change maker, what would those be in the field?
I really want people to believe in inclusion is one thing. So that's one thing. I think people, I'm making it sound a lot dire than what it is. I think people do believe in it. I think there's a lot of people, but I really want people to really focus on inclusion and not forget about it and actually make it part of their job. I hear it too much about it's on top of my job. It's not. It's part of
Mm.
the job.
Part
It's
of your job.
be doing. It's something that should be done. That's one thing. That's my future aspiration because people still are not doing that. I also would love to start seeing us talk more about different diverse groups. I think we're too focused on certain groups constantly. I think there's so much potential to talk more, but also but not focusing on metrics as much, but actually just giving people opportunities to showcase their backgrounds. I think that would be amazing. I also feel it becoming a little less social media campaigning. I want it to be a little less social personally because I think um, people are now making too many memes about it now, and they're making
Mm.
it. It's become a bit. Some things are becoming a bit funnier to joke in that space, and that's not what this intention is. It's such a beautiful field. It's such a beautiful
Yeah.
to be done, and I think like I don't want anything like that to ruin what D&I is. I think that's what I would say my aspiration would be. But obviously, more and more we talk about it, and that's social media for us. The more and more we talk about it, the more and more hopefully people will understand and want to make a difference in the change. So
Mm.
yeah, I do want to see that. I want to see change in the next 5 years. I want to hear that we've got like a really good gender balance somewhere. I want to hear the gender pay gap isn't 20% behind like it is now.
Mm.
I want to hear that it's going amazingly forward. I want to just hear things that are making people feel like they're included. That's what I just want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
But it's not metric. So it's a really hard question to answer because it might change tomorrow to something
yeah,
else.
that's true.
So,
It's
it's quite hard to answer. But yeah, I
true.
just want it to be a better world, to be
No,
honest.
those are beautiful aspirations. I think
Yeah,
that's kind of what everyone. I guess I guess it's kind of like the aspiration of most people working in D&I because
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
whole reason why you're in it in the first place. Um,
I mean,
but
with anyone I've connected with a lot of different professionals, whoever's in DNI, I love them. I think they're awesome. I think they're super powerful. I think they're super engaging. I think people that really want to make a difference and a change. I really want to thank them as well because actually, without them being in the field doing the work, this would be a topic constantly talked about.
true, yeah,
So without them, we're not going to be successful anyway. So I really credit them and I really them massive for making that change. And I always say to them constantly as well when I speak with them, just carry on going. Don't worry, we've got this. We can still do it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, they're doing an amazing job as
Mm.
best as they can.
That's an amazing sort of message to sort of end the episode on. Karen, you've been an absolute honor to have
Thank
on the
you.
podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Um, just before you go, I've got a little segment in the show where kind of every person on the Ethnically podcast gets asked a question from
Nice.
my previous guest,
Nice.
to do with the theme of ethnically, to do with
Nice.
diversity, inclusion, social change, impact, that sort of thing. You also get the opportunity to ask a question, but I will
Yeah.
ask your question first, which is really interesting question. Obviously, we're in autumn.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
are we in autumn? Yeah,
Well, I don't know whether we are. Yeah. Oh,
we're in a strange form of weather at the moment, but
yeah.
if we were going to class it, we'll call it autumn. But this question is from Shabna Begum, who is CEO of the Runnymede Trust. And
Nice.
she provides this question, which is, what does autumn mean for you professionally and personally?
What's autumn mean to me professionally and personally?
Yeah.
I don't even understand. I don't know where to start with.
Okay. It's a big
I-
question. Yeah. It's a very big question.
Good question. So professionally, I think autumn means opportunity for changes. I think
Mm.
it's a new quarter to think about. It's a new area because we're like going into quarter four in October, so not far away. So there's ways that you can probably think about how much more change you can incorporate before the year ends, and before the year ends, what can you do? For me, I think it's a good check-in for gratitude. So personally, how do I feel every time? I'm trying to get better at gratitude, to be honest with you, because I'm not very good at it at times, and I'm trying to get better with it. Feeling like every autumn now, it's can't believe it's autumn anyway, but
Mm.
in that space, like what can I be grateful for? What can I, thank, where I've got to and how have I got there and stuff from the higher powers above, because I believe in God and stuff. So for me, I'm just grateful. I think I learn a lot from that, from the gratitude journey from that. So autumn probably starts like reflect on your gratitude and see how you move forward from. But
That's
yeah,
really
that's a really good question because I don't know what that's put me on the spot as well. So I have no
nice.
clue how I would have answered that. I would say that as well.
You
So I have
answered that
no
really well,
clue
actually.
how.
And I
So,
I you just said autumn is an
yeah,
opportunity for change. I was like, wow, that is profound. That's actually true. I would probably not to answer the question myself, but I'd probably say something similar along those lines. Because
what would you say? Go, you might as well ask
oh, I know on the spot.
first.
Uh, I always see autumns like because I always think about school and like
Yeah,
starting school and like a new
yeah,
calendar. So I always see in a similar way. I feel like it's like gearing up for something exciting. Like it was. I always okay. I'm a bit biased as well. Everyone on the Ethnically podcast. My birthday is in November,
no,
so I have a soft spot for autumn anyway. So it
right,
feels like, and then you get in towards Christmas. It's like
yes,
for me, autumn professionally and personally is a bit of excitement, a bit of adrenaline before the end of the year. So
right,
I like to see it as like, yeah, make maximize whatever I've got left in the tank for this year before a nice long break in the
yeah.
Christmas.
I I think it's a really good attitude to have, right? It's like don't think of its ending, but it's more like there's still to be done towards the
Mhm.
end of the year and like how can we more love it, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Corinne, it's your chance to ask a question for my next guest, who I won't tell you their name because I like to keep it a suspense.
Okay.
Um, but around the theme of ethnically, things that we discussed, it can be a similar question. Like Shabna's asked, or you can come up anything creative. It's quite an interesting aspect of the show. So
I don't know what to ask, to be honest. Oh, I've no clue what to ask. what I can do is I can message you the question while I think about it. What can we talk about?
Yeah, you could do that. That's also
No,
perfect.
actually, why not? Let's ask this. So, what I think I would ask the person coming up is, why are they on Ethnically podcast? What made them come on?
Oh, that's actually. Oh, you know what? You're doing a bit of my work for me with that question. I like. That's a good question. Yeah,
Let's keep it.
I should have asked that question
Yeah,
off
you
the
should
start.
have. You should start that every single podcast and ask that
Yeah.
question. Why are you here?
Why? Yeah. That might be a new segment of the show now. Start asking them why they joined and why they want to be on the podcast. Okay, no, I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of that question because that helps me. But I also think, yeah, it's a good. I wonder who my next guest is now. Well, they're gonna get a good question definitely from you.
Hopefully that's a good question. What the hell kind of question is this?
Imagine that's their response. Like I said, Karen, it's been an absolute honor to have you on the podcast.
Having
Your
me.
insights, your experiences, your challenges, and even you asking me questions has been a real breath of fresh air. So
I'm gonna
just want to
say
thank you.
I'm super impressed with you, but I'm super impressed with what you're trying to achieve. I'm super
Yeah.
impressed with this whole idea and concept. I hope it goes even bigger than what you anticipated to do. I definitely feel like the vibe is there. I definitely feel like it's a really great thing to continue doing it. And keep pushing.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen. Thank you so much. And that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.